I was working yesterday afternoon on my sermon. Had a whole sermon written. Then I saw the news about El Paso, and I thought, we can pray about that. Went to bed, woke up, saw the news about Dayton. Now I don't know what to say. But I do know that thoughts and prayers are not enough. I do know that silence is not acceptable. I do know that not getting involved as people of faith is not cutting it. Pretending that this isn't happening, that it's not about hatred, is not solving anything. So instead, we're going to talk about Jesus. And I invite you to be rebellious. I urge us to hear our rebellious Jesus. Now, this is the very same Jesus that so many use in support of their white supremacist ways. This is the very same Jesus that many use as a justification that we are better than anybody else. That Jesus, that's the Jesus speaking in our text from Matthew today, the one who is questioned by the scribes and the Pharisees, the leaders of his day, and they are trying to trick him. It comes in the part of the gospel where they're looking for ways to get Jesus because he's been stirring up some trouble. He's been getting in the way of the comfortable life that was going on. He's been getting in the way of the status quo. But Jesus does not get trapped. When the scribes and the Pharisees asked Jesus which of the laws, the commandments, was the greatest, Jesus sifts through mentally, quickly, through all 600 some odd Old Testament laws that he would have been familiar with. Now, some of these we know. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Now, some of them we kind of know. Do not take God's name in vain. Do not make an idol. And then there's a whole bunch of them that maybe we've read, maybe we remember, but probably not. So do not do magic. Don't do it. Do not eat shellfish. Don't do it. Do not attempt to contact the dead. Don't do it. Don't shave your beard. Whoa, okay. Do not tattoo your skin. Well, so many more, right? There's a whole list of them. So when the religious leaders set about questioning Jesus and asking him to pick which of those 600 some odd is the best, is the greatest, they set Jesus up to fail. But instead, Jesus did what rabbis then and now try to do. He tried to make sense of the ancient texts, and he simply told them to love. Love is the greatest. Love God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, he picked two, technically, but one from Deuteronomy and one from Leviticus, but he took all those 600 and summarized them down into two, which seems like a good idea, right? Because now we only have two to really worry about instead of 600, but they're really hard. Really, really hard. In fact, some of those other ones seem easier. keep the beard, don't eat shellfish. Simple, straightforward. There's no confusion. But what exactly does it mean to love God with all of our heart, with all of our being, with all of our mind? And what does it mean to love our neighbor as ourselves? Now, Meister Eckhart in the 1300s said this. Imagine you're seeing a picture of a cow. Okay, imagine it. Some people want to see God with their eyes as they see a cow, he said, and to love God as they love their cow, for milk and cheese and the profit it brings them. This is how it is with people who love God for the sake of outward wealth or inward comfort. They do not rightly love God when they love him for their own advantage. Indeed, I tell you the truth, he said, any object you have in your mind, however good, will be a barrier between you and the inmost truth. So we are to love God not for what God can do for us, and not because of something we can attain by loving God, but just because. We are to put love for God before our love. We are to put nothing before our love for God. Complete single focus. Now, in Jesus' day, loyalty to Caesar, loyalty to the ruling party would have been expected. So to emphasize love for God above that has shaken things up. Now, in our day, to put love of God before love of money, focusing on ourselves and our own needs, that is shaking us up. So this is all intellectually well and good. We're going to love God first. But what does that mean? Jesus tells us. To love God is to love our neighbor as ourselves. We move from the somewhat abstract love God to where the rubber is going to meet the road, loving our neighbors as ourselves. Period. Love our neighbor means working to ensure that the lonely person who lives next door to us is a little less lonely because we stop and say hi. Loving our neighbor means working to bring an end to hunger and homelessness. Loving our neighbor means working to ensure that people are safe when they walk into Walmart, when they walk into a bar, or a garlic festival, or anywhere. The only way we can manage to love God with our entire being is by loving our neighbor all the time. The more we act in love, the more we love God. And the more we believe that God is all around us, just like we said in that children's book, that all of those people around us, no matter their skin color, no matter their immigration status, no matter their gender identity, no matter any of those things, God is all around us, and we are to love. Sounds easy. 2 commandments. but it's not. It is anything but easy. Because we're selfish. It's easier to think of ourselves first, to take care of the things we want and need first. It's easier to make sure that we and those people we love most next to us are comfortable and safe, to look after ourselves in our own best interests. But Jesus tells us differently. Newsflash, all the world's religions do too. That love comes first. Love God, love our neighbor, love ourselves. This is what should consume all of our being and all of our focus. Love should consume us. Not greed, not worry, not focused on our own comfort and well-being. Acts of love. Love is an action word. It demands that we do something. So Jesus rebelled by doing what many rabbis do, by inviting the hearer to reconsider and refocus on something they already knew. And Jesus, the rebel, asks us to do the same thing. To reconsider and to refocus on something that we already know, but don't always do. Love God, love our neighbor, love ourselves. It's that simple and that hard. Now we just have to do it. I want you to dig through your pile of papers that you got when you came and find your hymn insert. And on the back, this piece of paper right here. You can do this mentally. You can get a piece of paper or a pen or a pencil if you see one in the pew there. And I want you to take a moment to jot down some things in that first box. Don't skip ahead. I'll tell you what to do next. Don't overthink this. Go with your gut, your initial reaction. How might you love God better? Heart, mind, being. Okay, now consider if it's easier for you to love your neighbor or yourself. Why? That's the circle. And with all that in mind, in that final heart at the bottom, think of one, don't be an overachiever, one rebellious act of love that you are going to commit to do. Do you have your one thing? So we've got, 60 some odd things we are going to do. Now let's get to it. Amen.